Hi everyone, I hope you're well and welcome to Spill the Beans. My guest this week is Paul Fotheringham, who is the founder of 3D LifePrints. 3D LifePrints are a 3D printing organisation that specialise in prosthetics within the medical device industry. They are obviously utilising the newest trends and changes in technology in order to be able to get the patients exactly what they need as efficiently and effectively as possible. So Paul's got a really interesting story about his background and where he came from. He is based in Barcelona at the moment, which is not where he's from, as you can tell by his accent, but he was able to spare some time and give us an insight into 3D LifePrints, so really appreciative of that, and hope you guys enjoy it. Take it away. Paul, hi, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Tell everyone, whereabouts in the world are you right now?
I'm currently a little bit north of Barcelona, in the beautiful sunshine.
Perfect. Well, yeah, I'm very jealous. I'm very jealous. It is quite warm here in London today, but yeah, I much prefer to be just around Barcelona. How's the lockdown situation over there?
It's been interesting. As you may have seen in the news from the beginning, Spain had quite a problem, in the hundreds of thousands of cases, and unfortunately, in the last week or so, it's deteriorated. Barcelona had more cases in one day than the whole of the UK, and we're starting to see lockdown now in various places, including mandatory masks in public, as the UK is currently about to go down that line. Unfortunately, it's been the usual suspects of meat packing factories, fruit picking factories, and tourism. Unfortunately, back to Menorca and so forth has accelerated the problem. The Spanish take things a lot more seriously in some ways than the UK, and are able to lock down more effectively.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's a good thing in terms of being able to actually get things scaled back if they need to. So, I mean, fingers crossed this doesn't keep going too much further for you, and you're able to see a drop in those cases quite quickly. What's the
Absolutely.
actual individual lockdown setup like for you? Have you got a decent setup? Are you able to work pretty much as usual?
Yeah, for me, it's been actually not much difference in my lifestyle. I've been working from home now for about 13 years. Prior to this, I lived in Kenya, worked from home. And so really for me, I have a full office set up from the house as part of our business, a very virtual way of working. So really for me, it's not been much change really in terms of using virtual platforms and Zooms and so forth. It's been the norm for us for many years.
Perfect. Well, that's yeah. I mean, I suppose that's the kind of evidence that the rest of us are all just a little bit behind you. Then maybe, but we're adjusting. We're getting there slightly. Um, so, I mean, tell us. Obviously, you touched on the point there that you've lived in a few different locations, but just talk us through briefly. Your kind of personal career and what led you up to found 3D LifePrints.
Sure. So originally educated as a computer scientist at University of Edinburgh back in the day. And from there, I actually went to work in New York for about a year under the great Donald Trump. It was my first job where I was his PC fixer. So after that, didn't last very long there, obviously. I moved to Korea to do IT. And from there, I sort of jumped a few countries with my IT skills and as a technologist in London, working for the London Stock Exchange. I then moved to Hong Kong for 7 years, where I was heading up their enterprise architecture platform for trading, including the Tokyo Stock Exchange. And a few more years later, ended up in Kenya. Kenya was invited to become the CIO for a very large NGO for microfinance, which provides retail banking services for the poor and those less fortunate, with a very interesting architecture around the world. And when I was in Kenya, I started to see the advent of 3D printing, and a suggestion was made to me that maybe I should look at 3D printing for making amputees prosthetic legs. There's a great need, sadly, in a lot of these developing countries, especially East Africa, for prosthetics. They're not serviced by the government or the local health authorities. And so the business was born out of making 3D printed prosthetics low cost, affordable, aesthetically pleasing for those certainly in need.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it seems like quite a jump working from, I suppose there's a bit of time in between, but working on the Tokyo Stock Exchange through to, yeah, developing sort of, amputees. But I guess that's the kind of the diversity of a computer scientist. So
I think so, yeah. I mean, with technology, it's a very easy thing to, I never knew when I started that technology is one of the one professions that can take you anywhere in the world. The skill is certainly transferable anywhere else. And so as a technologist, ability to jump into roles in certain areas, and living in the world of investment banking, you realized after a while, you can be sitting there age 60, 70, and is that really what you want to do in life? And so I wanted to take my skills and actually give something back, I guess, towards society, as opposed to being the soulless banker and making lots of money.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it was the right decision, or that might not feel like it at times. Sometimes choose the money option. But so I guess you talked a little bit there about the sort of concept behind 3D life prints and kind of solving a problem there at its inception. Tell us about the story of the business. Like, where are you up to now? How long has it been? Tell us everything.
Sure. So, we looked at we became a social enterprise in Kenya for 3D print prosthetics, but it certainly spurred our interest in 3D printing as a whole, which was a nascent industry in the past, kind of. It's been around for about 25 years now, but really only taken off commercially in applicable use cases in the last 9-10 years. So we're invited by Panasonic to become the founding members of an innovation hub in Alderhay Children's Hospital in Liverpool. And that was the first of a kind, really, to bring in 3D printing for clinical practice and for medical purposes using Panasonic software. So what that consisted of was putting people and technology into the hospital and taking patient data to turn them into 3D printed models that can be used for surgical planning. So this is sort of first of kind that brought up the idea of point of care. The world of medicine is moving towards personalization of drugs, personalization of implants, and personalization of your care. And so look at today, a doctor will look at a CT scan and use that to make decisions on the planning for your operation. Now that scan is a 2D image on a 3D image on a 2D screen, and so by using 3D printing, they were able to make better decisions, more informed decisions, and that in turn led towards less time in the theatre, less time under anesthesia, and improved patient outcomes. So we took this model of point of care and saw the opportunities in this 7 years ago now, and since then we've broadened that across another 4 sites in the UK, including Manchester, Oxford, and London, and broadened the variety of products and services that we provide. Initially, it was anatomical models that were used for visual planning towards today, where we have probably 7 or 8 main streams of business, including 3D printed implants in titanium that go in your body, and 3D printed surgical guides that are used temporarily to improve the effectiveness of cutting bone and parts of your body for complex surgical procedures.
Fantastic. So I guess in terms of the actual difference between the two from a technology perspective, was it easy to make that transition from one into the other, or was it kind of starting from a new kind of subset from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, I guess technology and hardware are underlying the same. So understanding about how 3D printing technologies work, there are quite a variety of technologies out there, from melting plastic to fusing powder, and understanding what the most appropriate technology was for the clinician, for the surgeon. The biggest battle has been trying to get paid. As a fledgling SME back in the day, there are no reimbursement codes in the NHS. So, for example, a surgeon can sign off a screw for £500, but could not sign off a model for surgical planning. America is far more advanced than the UK from that perspective. And NHS is a notorious beast to get paid and to reimburse. So really we had to prove the benefits, and we still are today, of using 3D technologies both to improve patient outcome and to lower operational costs for the hospital.
Definitely. So in terms of your geographical footprint, where is your kind of strongest market? Where are you most prevalent in the world? Is it still in Africa, or are you more in the US now?
It's the UK. So UK incorporated business. We have 4 major offices in hospitals in the UK. We service about 50 institutions, both medical device manufacturers, universities, and hospitals. We also work in Europe, in Germany, in France, Switzerland. We've just recently incorporated in the USA. But also the nature of the business and the digital working of it, we can service anywhere in the world from a single consolidated platform. So that might be a surgeon in Abu Dhabi, it might be a prosthetist in Mumbai or Australia. But for this now, our physical presence is in the UK, Germany's next, and then USA afterwards.
Yeah, fantastic. And in terms of the actual logistics that go behind it, I mean, I can imagine something like a global pandemic for, surgical devices or, prosthetics might be a bit of a roadblock for you in terms of global shipping and stuff like that. Have you been impacted much by the pandemic at all?
In terms of logistics, or in terms of,
Well, I suppose from everything really, but I suppose from my kind of uneducated perspective, I can imagine if you've got the one kind of model and you're thinking about shipping things around the world and stuff like that, I mean, there might be, a few sort of slowing things down potentially because of the pandemic.
Yeah, there's definitely been a slowdown in logistics around the world in terms of speed to ship devices. COVID times for us actually has been an interesting period for us. We initially thought that it'd be a huge drop in revenue, as there has been for most companies in the world. We actually took this to our advantage and developed a number of side products during this period that were COVID-related devices, from PPE to masks to a device called a distancer that enables you to open a door safely without fear with reduced chance of contamination. So as a business, we've had to adapt to keep our revenue steady in order to keep our staff still working, and to see opportunities for the future. The world has changed now because of COVID, especially in the medical industry. It has fast-tracked its digitalization. It's fast-tracked its ability to rapid prototype and to push things through just much faster. They realize that they need to be more agile in order to react towards the problems that we're facing today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no one really saw this coming around the corner, but in terms of the ability to adapt and innovate, I mean, is this the first time that you've kind of had to very quickly think about making different products, or have you done that in the past as well?
Absolutely. So in the past, we often spread our wings a little bit too far. We had quite a large number of product lines, from prosthetics and orthotics to simulation devices and models, as I discussed before. But actually, that's come good for us now in terms of diversifying our product line, because certain product lines you've seen the revenue marginalized. For example, all elective surgery was cancelled and is still cancelled in the UK, which has affected hugely oncology and so forth. And that was our bread and butter in terms of providing models to surgeons for surgery. So by diversifying and looking at products that immediately kind of address some of the issues we're facing COVID today, it's kept our revenue stream up quite nicely.
Yeah, definitely. And then I suppose, post-pandemic, not that anyone can really predict what's going to be around the corner. 2020 has been a bit of a learning experience, I think. But in terms of, what the future has in store for 3D LifePrints, I mean, what can you tell us about the kind of future of the business?
Yeah, so we have very aggressive and ambitious plans that we've been formulating for a number of years. We recently took a 1.2 million investment from a number of UK investors, and part of that money is to be used for overseas expansion. For example, in Nebraska, in California, in Irvine, Cedars-Sinai, and to expand our portfolio of products. We're almost finished what is called ISO 13485 certification, which takes us into the next league in terms of our legal and medical ability to manufacture higher classes devices that are more invasive in the body. For example, 3D-printed implants that go into your jaw and so forth. So the time's been great for us to push through these certifications that are required for us to mature as a business. We're also looking at Singapore and other states in the US. So really, we've created what we call the platform, a digital overarching platform that can be transposed and cookie cuttered anywhere in the world, underpinned by data. So if I can have an engineer working in the Philippines that can be doing what we call segmentation for imaging in the UK, it's a follow the sun model that does not need to be in the same location, but all of that is underpinned by a very solid quality management system adhering to the medical regulations.
Yeah, definitely. So it sounds like you've got a busy time ahead. So, I mean, in terms of the whole sort of industry in healthcare and surgical healthcare, have you seen many kind of, businesses that you're potentially affiliated with or partner with, or just that you're aware of through being in the industry, that have also, taken that similar innovative approach? Or do you feel that you're kind of a step ahead of everyone else?
I feel as though we are a step ahead of everyone else because of the nature of the point of care, because we are embedded within the NHS and trusted partners to medical device manufacturers of our size as an SME. So if you look to some of the largest players, the ability for them to quickly form alliances with hospitals can take years of legal work for that. But we've sort of proven that having these in-house access to surgeons and the great minds within there, we can rapidly prototype devices, clinically test them, and push them to market. For example, with our distancer door open device, we went from idea to full productionization within 3 months, and currently we've got about 15,000 devices out there on the market across the UK, and that could not have happened unless we were situated in the hospital. And for us, that's been our differentiator in the market, that our competitors, who are much larger than us, offer a more remote way of working, and they've also seen a lot of shrinkage in their staff numbers and so forth, as manufacturing itself has lowered. Other people, for example, who are making 3D printed facial visors or masks, have seen obviously great uptake towards what they're doing. But we feel as though in this time of COVID, which will be here, let's not beat about the bush, it's going to be here for a few years. People have to adapt and change towards that, be it digitalization, be it a remote way of working. There'll be no conferences now for a year or so forth. So still try to promote your company in certain ways and keep your finger in the pulse.
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like, in terms of your traction in the marketplace is kind of reflective over your ability to be able to innovate and adapt and obviously be at the forefront, being based in the hospitals as well, which is great. So I guess, just finally, in terms of the sort of wider industry, obviously we're thinking short term in terms of the pandemic being here for a couple of years, but far beyond that, do you think that this kind of access to healthcare and kind of innovation and having that kind of cookie cutter approach is going to be adopted by most industries with, healthcare businesses within your industry?
Yeah, we're under no illusion that the largest player in the world could easily replicate what we do, and we often get asked this in terms of how do you protect your market share, how do you protect what you do. The answer is we can't. If someone from the size of Stryker or Zimmer come in with their $80 billion revenue companies, we are unable to fight from that perspective. But what we do have is an on-the-ground relationship that's very hard to happen between corporates to corporates. From being an SME and an agile nature, we can protect ourselves from that perspective in having unfettered access to surgeons, access to data that is very viable towards these large manufacturers. We're often called the Trojan horse by medical device manufacturers, in that they are using us in some way to be a differentiator amongst a plethora of organizations where contracts are competitive, contracts are constantly up for renewal. These are large contracts for orthopedic, oncology, cardiothoracic, and so we differentiate their offering to large institutions like the NHS by providing a service that truly can improve patient outcomes and lower costs for the hospital, in terms of time in the theatre, in terms of reducing custom implant needs and so forth.
Yeah, well, that's basically what it's all about. If there's a better service which is more affordable, then that's obviously evidence as to why you're getting the traction that you are, which is great news. But look, we're pretty much out of time. So if there was any thing that anyone kind of wanted to find out about 3D LifePrints and the work that you're doing either in the UK or internationally, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
They can get up with me personally. I can find my email address, or they can go to our website, 3dlifeprints.com, or email info@3dlifeprints.com. As I said, we're a small organization and we're very service orientated. So, we'd be happy to talk to anyone that's interested in learning more about our products and services.
Fantastic. And you've obviously fairly engaged online as well, so you're sharing some good content and things like that as well, so it's worth following you on the social channels. But I'll put links to all of that stuff that you've mentioned in the summary of this podcast as well, so people can easily get in touch. But Paul, look, thank you very much. Is the sun shining there in Spain?
It is. It's 29 degrees just now. But it's a first world problem.
That's it. Someone's got to do it. Do it. But if that's where you choose to base yourself, that's the benefits of remote working, I suppose, isn't it? So
absolutely.
Great. Well, look, thank you very much for taking the time again. And I look forward to seeing all the conversations that would no doubt span off the back of this. So I'll be watching closely. But thank you very much, Paul, and we'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you, Duncan.
So that's a wrap this week then, guys. Thanks very much to Paul for taking the time to chat with us whilst he's over in Barcelona. Very jealous, but yeah, it was really good to hear an insight into one of the, I suppose smaller players isn't necessarily the right word, but one of the newer players in the prosthetics industry, how they're trying to utilise technology to be able to provide a better standard of service for their patients, and they are getting a lot of traction at the moment. So if you are keen to find out more, please just click on the links that are in the summary of this podcast below. But for anything else, you can either reach out to me, which the links are on there as well. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week.